You've got nothing, Alma. Not one page.
She said that on my own front porch, holding my son's overnight bag. 9 days later, a judge would decide where that boy slept at night. I used to have 22 pages. Every one of them said I was fine. You should have kept your own copies. Okay. Cole doesn't even want to do this. Okay. I took the bag and told her thank you for bringing it. Then I shut the door and stood in the hallway with my hand still on the knob. To understand that, I have to go back. The strange part isn't that they took the file. It's that they told me they took it. I was 47 that summer. 26 years in the Army by then, almost all of it in Texas. I work out of the Provost Marshal's office at Fort Hood in investigations. People hear that and picture something loud. It never is. It's phone calls, photographs, and waiting on a lab in another state. I write reports about other people's worst nights, and that's my whole career. 26 years of doing that, and I never once learned to write anything down about myself. Cole's family had a shorter version of me, and I heard it at a cookout the summer before all this. She came back from that last one wrong. Keep your voice down. I'm saying what everybody in this yard is thinking. She's 20 feet away, Dale. Then she can hear it. The tour, they meant, was 14 months in a place I still don't talk about much. I came home that October and slept in a chair for most of a week. Nobody ever said any of it to my face. They said it near me, where they knew I could hear. I never corrected them, and that part is on me. You spend 26 years learning to keep your mouth shut in rooms where it matters, and then you can't open it in your own kitchen. Cole Bracken and I were married 11 years, and we separated 3 years before any of this started. It was never a war between us. It was a long, quiet ending. We didn't fight about money or about anybody else. We fought about being too tired to keep trying. You're never home before 9. I'm home now. That's not what I said. I know what you said, Cole. He runs a heating and air company off Veterans Memorial Boulevard. 2 trucks at first, and then 5. Micah came late for both of us, and he turned 5 that April. He loved ceiling fans, cold cereal, and any dog that would hold still. He'd lie on his back under the fan in my living room and watch it go around until his eyes got heavy. That's the picture I keep from that summer. And it's the one I'd have lost if this had gone the other way. Our custody order was a simple one. Week on, week off. For 2 years, that arrangement worked fine. Then Cole married Kendra. She was 36, and she kept the books for the company and the calendar for the house. She was good at both of those things, and I want to be fair about that. The first sign came in March, and I missed it. "We're calling about the emergency form," the woman said. "Is something wrong?" "No, ma'am. We have Mrs. Bracken listed as primary contact." "That's not my name." "It's the name on the card." "Who filled the card out?" "I couldn't tell you that." I let it go, because it seemed small. That's how it works, though, because it never starts with a courtroom. It starts with a form, and a card, and a woman on a phone who's only doing her job. My name has been Reyes my whole life. Alma Reyes. I never changed it, not once, not even the year we married. In June, a man knocked on my door at 7 in the evening. "Are you Alma Reyes?" "I am." "I'm sorry about this, ma'am." "You don't have to be. Where do I sign?" I signed his clipboard on the hood of my car, and the porch light behind me had moths all over it. Then I sat down on the front steps and went through the envelope. It was a petition to modify our order, and Cole wanted the boy full-time. I got to page 4 before I stopped. There was one word beside my name I had never seen there before. Unstable. My stomach dropped. My hands stayed steady. That's how it always goes with me. The petition said I'd come home from my last deployment changed, and that there were episodes. It said Micah wasn't safe on my weeks. It didn't name a doctor, and it didn't name a date, because it didn't have to. It only had to get said out loud in a courtroom. That's the part civilians don't understand about paper. A sentence with nothing behind it still gets a room and a judge and a date. I called Cole at 9 that night. Did you write this? I didn't write anything. The lawyer wrote it. You signed it. Silence.
It isn't personal, Alma.
Page 4 says episodes. Name 1. I'm not doing this on the phone. Name 1, Cole. You know how you were that first winter. I slept in a chair. That's what you've got. He hung up on me before I could answer that. That's the sentence I kept, though. Not personal. I sat in the kitchen a long while after that, until the light over the stove was the only one left on in the house. Out on the highway, a truck was running its engine brake, and the sound came in through the screen the way it had for 11 years. Here's the part of it that actually mattered. After that last deployment, the Army sent me through a fitness for duty evaluation, then a second one, and then a third a year after that. That's normal, and half my shop went through some version of it. All 3 of mine came back clean. No limitations, full duty. I'd scanned every page years earlier, back when Cole and I were still married. They lived in a folder on the family drive. He paid for 22 pages in, order, signature block and all. I had never once thought about moving them. The next morning I sat down with my coffee and opened the drive. The folder was gone. I want to explain what that drive was, because it sounds like nothing. Cole set it up the year Micah was born, 1 account and 1 monthly bill. Tax returns, insurance shot, records, photographs from the hospital. My folder sat in there with all of it named the way I name things. Evaluations. Nothing clever. I searched the whole drive twice that morning, and then I searched the trash. Empty. I searched it a third time slower, as though slower would make some kind of difference. People ask why I didn't keep paper copies. I did have them once in a footlocker in a storage unit off Trimier Road. It flooded the spring Micah turned 2, and I threw out 3 bags of pulp and a ruined field jacket. After that, I trusted the drive, because a drive doesn't flood. That's the thing about backups, though. You only find out what they were for on your worst day. I called the company that runs the drive at 8:15. I need a folder restored, please. Can I get the account holder's name? It's my ex-husband's account. The folder is mine. I'm sorry, it's not your account, ma'am. It has my medical paperwork in it. I understand. It's still his account. Is there anything at all you can tell me? Then he said the thing I should have chased. There's a nightly copy that runs on every account. A copy of what? Everything. It runs at 10 at night. Who can ask for it? The account holder can. How long do you keep them? 30 days, ma'am. I thanked that young man and hung up the phone. He was maybe 22 years old, working off a screen, and he had no idea he'd just handed me the whole case. I didn't know it either, not for another whole month. That conversation happened on the 16th of June. That afternoon, Cole dropped Micah off and Kendra came up the walk with him. She had a way of standing that took up the whole doorway. Cole says you called the drive company. I did. There's a copy that runs at night. I already looked. You looked. It's not in there either. It's just gone, Alma. She said it plainly, the way you'd say the store was out of milk. Micah was pulling his shoes off behind her, and I kept my voice level. Okay. You should have kept your own copies. Okay. She smiled at me and went back down the walk. I believed her. That's the ugly part about being trained for this work. You learn to weigh what people tell you. Then somebody says a flat lie in a calm voice, and it walks right past you into the house. That's the one thing I'd change if I got to change one thing. I could have called that company back that same afternoon and asked one more question. It would have taken 10 minutes, and I didn't call. I put Micah in the bath instead and let him talk. There was a dog at the gas station. What kind of dog? A big one. He had a bandana. Did you pet him? Daddy said no, but the man said yes. His bath water went cold while he explained that dog to me twice. The window over the tub was open, and the whole street smelled like cut grass and hot asphalt. 2 days later, I filed a records request with the hospital for the originals. How long does this take? 8 to 10 weeks. The hearing is the first week of August. I know, ma'am. 8 to 10 weeks. Is there a way to move it up? Not one I've ever seen work. Some things in this world you can't push. Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast, right up until it isn't. That night, I got out a legal pad and wrote down everything I could still remember. Dates, doctor names, which building, what the waiting room smelled like. Then I looked at the page and felt sick, because a legal pad in my own handwriting proves exactly nothing. I needed the evaluations, and the evaluations were gone. In 7 weeks, a stranger in a black robe was going to ask me for them. Imagine being told to prove you aren't something when every piece of proof you ever had is sitting where you can't reach it. The money came next, the way it usually does. Cole called about the house in the last week of June. My attorney's sending you something. About what? The equity. I want my half before August. We signed that away 3 years ago. He says it's worth asking. Then he's charging you to ask. Don't make this ugly, Alma. I'm not the one sending letters. Cole didn't write one word of that letter either. I know what his handwriting sounds like, and that wasn't it. The letter didn't scare me, but it told me something. They were trying doors, and when one didn't move, they went to the next one. The next door they tried was the school. We're confirming the change, Mrs. Bracken. What change? You've been removed from pickup. Removed by who? It was called in Tuesday. By who? By Mrs. Bracken, ma'am. There it was, one more time. That name. I drove over and stood at the counter with my identification card out. I'm his mother. This is my week. I believe you. I still can't release him. You've watched me sign him out for 2 years. It's a court thing now. We can't get in the middle. I went out to the parking lot and sat in my car with the engine off. I've waited in that lot every year since he started, in a long line of running engines with everybody else. That afternoon, I was the only car in it, and the flag on the pole hung dead straight in the heat. It was 101 degrees, and the steering wheel burned my palms when I finally took hold of it. Tears came up in my eyes, and I let them for about a minute. Then I wiped my face and drove back to work because I had a shift. 3 days later, the court appointed somebody for Micah. Her name was Miss Odom, and she was maybe 60, with reading glasses on a chain. She came to my house on a Wednesday morning and looked at everything. The refrigerator, his room, the back gate. Does he have his own room here? He does. It's the one with the fan. Who watches him on your night shifts? My neighbor. She's been doing it 4 years. I'll want her name. She was polite the entire time, and she wrote in a small notebook. She'd been doing that job a long while, and she asked her questions like somebody who already knew the answers were going to be sad either way. Then she asked me one that took the air out of the kitchen. Where do you keep your service weapon, Mrs. Bracken? Reyes. And I don't keep one here. That's not what I was told. Who told you? I'm not able to say. I walked her down the hall and showed her the gun safe standing open and empty. It stays locked at the range. Here's the receipt. How long has it been there? Since the week he was born. 5 years. 5 years. She wrote in that notebook for a long time. Somebody gave you that. Somebody gave me a lot of things. Then she shut the notebook and looked at me over the reading glasses. Mrs. Reyes, do you have medical paperwork showing you're well? I do. It was taken. Taken. Deleted. Off a drive I don't control. That's a hard sentence to say in a courtroom. She was right, and even I could hear how it sounded. That's what they were counting on. Not a lie exactly, more like a shape. Take away the paper, and the truth starts to sound like an excuse. In my work, we call that a clean scene. Not empty. Cleaned. Somebody wiped it down, and the wiping is the evidence if anybody thinks to look for it. 2 Sundays later, I was making eggs when Micah asked me the question. Daddy says you get bad dreams. Sometimes I do. Do you get them when I'm here? I turned the burner off and sat down so we were the same height. No, not when you're here. How come? Because I know where you are. He thought about that for a while. Are you going to get better? 5 years old, standing in his socks on my kitchen floor asking me that. There's nothing wrong with me, buddy. Okay. Do you believe me? Yes. I told him the truth because he'd have known if I hadn't. Children can smell a careful answer from across a room. I've stood in some ugly rooms in my life. Nothing ever hollowed me out like that question. I called Maura Whitfield the next morning. We met at Basic back when we were both 19 and terrified of everything. She was a lawyer's daughter from Beaumont who enlisted to get away from her father. She stayed in the Army, sent her to law school, and she came out a JAG officer. She retired a few years back and hung a shingle on Rancière Avenue doing family law for people who can't pay her much. We met at a coffee place with a window unit that rattled, and she let me talk for 11 minutes without a word. Then she asked me one single question. Who pays for the drive? He does. Then it isn't gone. His wife checked the backup. She set her coffee cup down on the table. Alma. She isn't allowed to be the one who checks. Meaning what? Once a case is filed, both sides have to keep evidence. All of it. All of it. Nobody gets to decide what's relevant alone. They deleted it in June. Then they deleted it after they were told not to. Told by who? By the law the day he filed. She wrote 3 words on a napkin and turned it around. Preservation, production, sanctions. That's a letter, an order, and a punishment, she said, in that order. And if it really is gone, then the judge gets to decide why it's gone. That helps me. That helps you more than the pages would. I'm going to ask for the whole account. They'll say it's empty. Good. Let them put that in writing. That was the 2nd of July. The letter went out that afternoon, and the motion went in on Monday. Cole's attorney was a man named Loomis, and he answered in 4 days. His answer said the folder had been removed in the ordinary course of business. Maura called me and laughed out loud on the phone. Ordinary course of business, she said. Is that bad for us? It's a phrase people use when they're scared. It sounds official. An account with one owner has no ordinary course of business. The judge signed an order on the 11th. The whole account went to the county, not to me. To the county. A man named Ruben Sotelo did the work digital forensics for the sheriff's office. I never met him before the hearing, and I only heard his voice one time before that day. He called Maura on a Thursday, and she put him on speaker in her office. I've got your folder. I put my hand flat on the desk. All of it. 22 files. From where? The nightly copy dated the 10th of June. Relief hit me so hard I had to sit down. He talked the way people talk when the facts are doing all the work for them. No adjectives, just times and file names and what happened in what order. That's exactly how I write my own reports, and it's the reason people believe them. There's something else in here. Maura leaned in closer to the phone. Go ahead. Every file got opened before it went in the trash. Opened, Maura said, one after the other. How long did that take? 9:17 at night to 9:51. Nobody in that office said anything for a second. Then the folder went to the trash at 10:11. And the trash emptied 4 minutes after that. I sat there and did the arithmetic in my head. They opened all 22 of those pages. Every page said I was fine. Then they threw all of it away. I've worked cases where somebody destroyed evidence in a panic, and you can usually see the panic in the order they did things. This wasn't panic at all. This was a person who opened 22 pages, saw that every single one of them cleared me, and dropped the whole folder in the trash anyway. They didn't wonder about you, Maura said quietly. They checked. That's the moment the whole thing turned over for me. For 3 weeks, I've been fighting a story about a woman who came home broken. That wasn't the story at all, and the story was that they already knew better. Send me the log. It'll come sealed, county copy. She hung up and looked at me across the desk. Nobody opens that envelope. Not you, not me. Why not? Because the second you open it, you're the one telling the story. And if I want to see it, Then you become a woman with a printout. Let the county tell it. The envelope came to her office on the 18th of July. She put it in a drawer and neither of us touched it. 3 weeks is a long time to sit on something like that. I kept finding reasons to drive past her office, and twice I got as far as the parking lot and turned around. Cole called me twice in those 3 weeks. The first call was about a soccer sign-up, and neither of us mentioned the case. The second call was a different thing entirely. We can end this. Right now. How? You take every other Christmas. And supervised visits through the school year. Supervised. It's a formality, Alma. It'd be over tomorrow. I stood at my kitchen window and watched a sprinkler go around next door. No. You're going to lose. Maybe. You'll lose in front of him. That was the worst thing he said in 3 years. And he said it evenly. Here's what nobody warns you about with somebody you used to love. They know exactly where the soft spot is because you showed it to them yourself years ago on a good night. I hung up and washed the same clean cup for a while. Anger is the easy road. Anger would have felt wonderful. It was 94 degrees at 9 at night, and I went out and ran 4 miles anyway because moving is the only thing that has ever helped me. On the 24th of July, somebody called my command. They didn't leave a name for anybody. A concerned party. The caller asked whether the Army knew that one of its investigators had a fitness problem. My supervisor pulled me into his office at 7 the next morning and shut the door. He's a plain man and he didn't dress it up. Somebody called about you. Yes, First Sergeant. You want to tell me anything? No. You sure? I'm in a custody case. That's all it is. They asked if you were fit. I know. You know I have to write this down. I know. It goes in a file, Reyes. Yes, First Sergeant. That's the one that got me. Not the porch, not the school. There is nothing in my world worse than a caller who won't leave a name. You can't answer it, and you can't face it. It goes in a file and it sits there. 26 years of clean paper and one call from somebody with no name goes in right beside it. I sat in my truck afterward and shook for about 90 seconds. Then I stopped because shaking doesn't restore anything. I went inside and worked the full shift because that's the job, and the job doesn't care what kind of week you're having. 9 days before the hearing, Kendra brought Micah's bag to my porch herself. That's the same porch I started this story with. You've got nothing, Alma. Not 1 page. Okay. Cole doesn't even want to do this. I keep telling him you'll fold. Okay. Is that all you say now? That's all I've got. She waited for more, and I didn't give her more. She'd put on a sundress and sandals to hand me a 5-year-old's backpack, and she had practiced that first line in the car, because nobody says a sentence that clean without practicing it first. I want to be clear about something. I could have told her right then. It was in a drawer on Rancière Avenue, with a seal across the flap. I've thought about why I didn't, and the honest answer is simple. You don't warn somebody before you serve a warrant. You just don't. You knock 1 time, and the room tells you the truth about itself. The night before the hearing, I had a shift I couldn't hand off. We had a stolen parts case running, and the vehicle came into the motor pool at midnight. I worked it until 4:30 in the morning, doing photographs, seals, and evidence sheets. The bay smelled like cold concrete and brake cleaner, and somebody had left a radio playing low over by the tool crib. I photographed one serial number 4 separate times to be sure, because sloppy work is how guilty people get to go home. Then I washed my hands and my face at the bay sink and drove into town in uniform. I got to the courthouse in Colleen before 6, and those doors don't open until 8. So I sat down on the steps with the envelope on my knees and watched the sky come up. The stone was still warm from the day before, and the lot lights went off in one long row. A man in a city truck emptied the trash can by the curb and nodded at me. I nodded back. Just me and that envelope sealed with the county's stamp across the flap. My eyes were dry the whole time I sat there. I hadn't cried since that parking lot at the school. I didn't open it, and I didn't need to. I already knew what was inside, and so did they. I've never been able to explain why I wasn't nervous, except that I had already done the only part that was mine to do. At 8 in the morning, the doors opened. Family court in that building is a small room with good light. Judge Verna Halstead had been on that bench 9 years, with gray hair cut short and a habit of looking at people over the top of her glasses. Loomis went first, and he was smooth about it. "She has deployed 4 times, Your Honor." That part was true. She came home from the last one changed. He let that sentence sit there in the room. He never called me unstable out loud, because he didn't have to. He kept setting the word deployment next to the word changed, and he let the room do the rest of the work for him. Then he brought Kendra up to the stand. She was good at it. I'll say that plainly because it's true. She cried in the right places and never once raised her voice. I've watched that boy ask his mother if it's okay. How often more than a child should have to. Has she ever been hostile with you? No, never. Have you ever seen medical paperwork about Mrs. Bracken? There isn't any. None at all. We looked for years. Did you look recently? Yes. There's nothing there. She never said one thing I could have proved was false. And that's what made it work so well. She said what she'd watched, and what she'd worried about, and what she'd looked for and never found. Maura wrote one word on her pad and turned it so I could see it. Waiting. There were maybe 9 people in the gallery. Micah wasn't one of them, and I've been grateful for that every day since. Maura put me on the stand before the noon break and she asked me 11 questions. Have you ever been placed on a duty limitation? No. Ever been flagged, suspended, or counseled for fitness? No. Have you ever been referred for a fitness evaluation? 3 times. Standard after deployments. Who ordered them? The Army did. What did they find? Nothing. Do you have those evaluations? They were on a shared drive. Are they there now? No. Who paid for that drive? He did. Then Loomis stood up for cross, and he had one good question. You can't show this court a single page, can you, Mrs. Bracken? Not this morning. Not this morning, he repeated and sat down. He thought he had won the day right there. Honestly, so did I. I've testified in something like 40 hearings, and every one of them was about somebody else. Sitting in that chair with my own name on the docket was a different animal entirely. Every answer I gave was true, and every one of them sounded thin without a page behind it. Maura didn't look worried at all, and I couldn't work out why not. Then Loomis said the sentence that ended his own case. Your Honor, my client's position is simple. These evaluations do not exist. They don't exist, the judge said. They have never been produced, not one page in 3 years. You're certain of that, counsel? I am. Judge Halstead wrote something down on her pad. Counsel, she said to Maura. Do you have a response? Maura stood up. Your Honor, I'd like to hand up the county's recovery report. The room changed around us. You could feel it move. Loomis came up out of his chair fast. Objection! We've had no notice of any report. You have notice. You were served on the 22nd. I have no such filing. It went to your office by hand, counsel. Judge Halstead put a hand out toward the clerk. Bring it here. Maura walked the envelope up, and the clerk carried it the last few steps. This is sealed by the sheriff's forensic unit. Yes, Your Honor. Has either party opened it? No, Your Honor. Neither of us. She broke the seal with her thumb. Nobody in that room said a word. You could hear the air conditioning and nothing else. I've been in rooms where somebody was about to lose everything, and they all sound exactly like that. She started at the top and went down the page out loud, slowly, the way you count money. The folder name on it was Evaluations. 22 files restored from the nightly copy dated the 10th of June. Then the timestamps. 9:17 at night, first file opened. 9:22, second file opened. She went through every one of them, and it took a while. 9:51, The last file opened. 10. 11. The folder moved to the trash.
10:15, the trash emptied.
Every one of those numbers was a page about me, opened by somebody standing in a lit kitchen at night while my son slept down the hall in that same house. She got to the last line and stopped. And then she took her glasses off. "Stop," she said. "Everybody stop." "Your Honor, if I could explain the timeline." Not one word, counsel. She put a hand up without looking at him. "Madam Clerk, restore every file to the record. Every page of it. All 22, Judge, all 22, before another word is said in this room." The whole thing took 11 minutes. Nobody left. Nobody talked. 22 pages came off that printer one at a time in the order they were made. I watched Kendra's face for most of it, and I felt sorry for her. I didn't expect that. The clerk brought the printed set up, and the judge went through it, page by page. Fitness for duty. No limitations. Full duty. She turned a page and kept going. Second evaluation. No limitations. Then she turned another page. Third. No limitations. Signed by Dr. Paulette Shore. Then she held up the last page. "Counsel, this page has a name and a line underneath it." "Your Honor." "I'm going to say the name that's on it." She looked out at the room, and then she said it. "Sergeant First Class Alma Reyes, United States Army, 26 years of service." I had never once said that out loud in that room. Not one time, in 3 years. Something let go in my chest that I'd been holding since June. It wasn't triumph, either. It was closer to being set down after somebody has carried you a long way. "Counsel, you've been calling her Mrs. Bracken all morning." "That's how she's listed." "She's listed wrong. Fix it." Loomis sat down. He had spent the whole morning naming me after a marriage that ended 3 years ago. Ruben Sotelo testified for about 6 minutes, and he was the most boring man in Texas. I mean that as a compliment. He never raised his voice once. "Can a folder delete itself?" "No, ma'am." "Can a file open itself?" "No, ma'am." "Could this have been an accident?" "Not in that order." "Explain that for the court." "An accident doesn't open 22 files first." "Thank you." That was the whole thing. Judge Halstead put the last page on top of the stack and squared the edges. "Here's what I have. A petition that says there's no evidence." She tapped the whole stack once with one finger. "And evidence that was opened page by page, then thrown away." Cole put both hands over his face. Kendra reached for her arm, and he moved it. That was the whole marriage right there, in one small motion. Kendra didn't cry after that at all. She sat very straight and looked at the wall behind the bench. I'd like to tell you I felt something big in that moment. I mostly felt tired. The ruling came the following week, and it was short. Judges in that building don't make speeches. She went through her findings, set the next date, and moved on. The petition was denied that day, and my weeks stayed my weeks. She sent the deletion over for somebody else to deal with, and I'll leave that where it belongs. She ordered Cole to pay Morris fees and the county's cost for the restoration. Then she asked me one question directly. "Mrs. Reyes, are you asking me to take anything from the father?" Maura had told me not to answer that kind of question fast. I answered fast anyway. "No, ma'am. Nothing at all. He's a good dad on his weeks. That part is still true." "You understand what he tried to do." "I do. And you're asking for nothing." "I'm asking that my son gets both of us." She looked at me a second longer than she needed to. "That's noted." Out in the hallway, Cole caught up with me by the elevators, and he looked older than he had that morning. "I didn't know she opened them." "You knew they were gone." "Yeah." "That's the same thing." "It isn't the same thing, Alma. It is in a courtroom." He nodded at that. He didn't argue. He isn't a stupid man. He isn't a cruel man either. Not really. He's a man who lets somebody else be cruel for him, and then put his name under it. Can he still come Saturday? Of course he can. That isn't forgiveness. It's just what was best for a 5-year-old. Kendra moved out of that house in October. I won't pretend I felt nothing about it because I felt plenty. But nothing I did put her in that car, and nothing I said sent her down that road. The pages did it. And those pages had been sitting on a server the entire time. They were never lost at any point. They were only somewhere I wasn't allowed to look. That's the thing about the truth. It doesn't rot in a drawer. It waits. Maura and I still have coffee on Rancier Avenue, and she never once said she told me so. You could have told her on that porch. I know. Why didn't you? Because she'd have called somebody that night. That's the first thing you've said that sounded like a cop. She charged me nothing, and when the fee order finally came through, she spent the first of it on a set of tires for my truck. That was 3 years ago this month. Cole and I split the school runs now, and we're civil to each other about it. Micah is 8 now. He's tall for it, and he still won't eat anything green. He plays goalkeeper because he says it's the one spot where you're allowed to yell. On Sundays, he makes his own eggs, burns them, and eats them anyway. He salts them before they're done every single time, and I've quit saying anything about it. Last month, he left a note on the counter for me before a night shift. It said, "Back by 9, don't forget," and he'd drawn a ceiling fan underneath. That note is in my wallet, and it's going to stay there. He knows there was a court thing, and he doesn't know what was in it. One day the whole file will be his to look at if he ever wants it. He asked me last spring what a sergeant is because a boy at school said his uncle was one. It's somebody who's responsible for other people. How many people? Depends on the day. That sounds like a lot of work. It is. Were you good at it? I showed up, that's most of it. He asked me one more thing on the way to practice. Did somebody say you weren't? Some people did. What happened? A judge said my whole name out loud. That's it. That's all it takes sometimes. The envelope is in a shoebox on the shelf in my closet. It's flat now, with the seal torn across the flap and the county stamp still on it. His kindergarten drawing of a ceiling fan is in there with it. The fan in that drawing has 8 blades, and there's a stick figure underneath it lying flat on the floor. I don't take that box down often, maybe twice in 3 whole years. I take it down when I need to remember what a piece of paper is worth. Here's what I know now, and it took me 47 years to learn it. Being quiet isn't the same thing as having nothing to say. I used to think being underestimated was a kind of protection. It isn't. It's a slower way of disappearing. People will build a whole story about you out of the parts you never bothered to correct. And the only thing that ever beats a story is a dated page with a signature on it. Keep your own copies. Keep them somewhere nobody else pays the bill for. If this one stayed with you, share it with somebody who's been telling the truth without any paper to back it up. And if you'd like another, subscribe and stay with me.